everyone, today I am going to teach you how to put together your crooked feather kit. So there are different types of assembly that you can choose, but we're going to go over this from step one, assuming that you have bought a raw kit. If you have purchased one with an assembled back brace, you can skip ahead. I'll put times below, and you don't need to worry about this part, but we're going to go over this just on the assumption that you're getting just the raw bits and pieces. In your kit, if you have an electric kit, you're going to have 2 actuators, a control board, and a battery, a back brace, which is these metal plates, some bars of aluminum with various holes in them, and you're going to get the number of bags that you need to complete your project. These bags, on them will say actuator, frame, back brace, and usually BBX frame, which is just us mounting the arm bars to the back brace. So let's get started with the back brace. The first thing you're going to want to do with your back brace is to deburr it, and you can get this little deburring whip for $10 on Amazon. And you're first going to go along the outer edges just to make sure that while you're handling this, you're not going to cut yourself. You can see I'm pulling up just little strips of metal, and that makes the edge nice and smooth so that you, again, it's not that sharp already, but this just kind of takes away that possibility of accidentally cutting yourself. So you're going to do the outer edges. You're also going to see that at the bottom part of the back plate where there's that loop, you're going to want to go in there and do all of the edges on the interior of that loop. That's another really great place to hold the back brace while you're trying to get it on. So that's a good spot to do. And lastly, you're definitely going to want to go ahead and deburr all of these holes, these kind of rectangular holes that are for the straps. And this will help make sure that you don't prematurely wear through the straps. It just kind of rounds everything out and makes it really smooth so that as you move around, you're not cutting through the straps. Next, you're going to go ahead and take the standoff plates here and do exactly the same thing, and you only need to do this outer edge. And this is just me being overly cautious because while you're handling the back brace, we just want to make sure that we're not accidentally cutting ourselves low, but you know, it could happen. Next, grab that baggie that says back brace, and we are going to put these bad boys together. First thing you're going to do is take your 1-inch bolts and just drop them through the back of the back brace so that they're kind of hanging down. And then we're going to take our hands and kind of hold them in place so that they don't fall through when we turn them over. And then we're going to set it down on the table so that you now have all of those bolts sticking up. And then on each of the bolts, you're going to put your white nylon spacers. And then you're going to put on your standoff. The standoff only fits in one direction. So you see here, it slides on nice, right? Flip it any direction, and it is not going to fit in those holes. It is not a mirror image for a reason. So if it's not fitting on the way you want, just give it a couple of flips to see if you can't figure out which direction it's supposed to go, because it should slide on nice and easy. So next, we're going to go ahead and put on our nylock nuts. These allow for vibration and movement while staying extremely secure, so that because these have moving parts, admittedly not on the back brace, but because they have moving parts, you don't want them to be coming loose over the lifetime of your wings. So I like using these because they're nice and secure over a long period of time. It does mean a little bit of extra work, but it's totally worth it. So first off, you're just going to go ahead and hand tighten the plate, the nuts down so that the plate is secure while you work on the other side. Once you have both standoffs hand tightened down, you're going to need a 7/16 inch wrench. And you can either use a Phillips head screwdriver, or like me, you can put a Phillips head on a hand drill. And what we're going to do is, securing the bolt on one side, we are going to tighten down the Phillips head bolts from the other side. Make sure, unlike me, you have it on the right setting. So I usually put it at about between a 7 and a 9. And then I tighten down each of these. It just goes a lot faster, you know, if you use tools, electric tools. But you can do this by hand just as easily. Just make sure that every single one is tightened down all the way. If you do it by hand, after tightening everything down, just go back and make sure that as you tighten things down, one didn't come a little looser, because tightening down can create a loose bolt. Like, basically, as you tighten everything down, it has more give. So just go back and make sure that everything's tightened down. So that one's now locked in. The other one we still have to do. So second verse, same as the first. We're going to go back through and do the other side. Now that that's done, we're going to take 1/2 inch foam. You can get it at Joann's, comes in green. And we're going to use 90 spray glue. We're going to spray that on both sides because I'm indoors. I am not going to actually do it, but spray it both on the foam and on the back brace, and then you're going to wait for it to get tacky. Once it's tacky, you're going to put them together and let them set for a little bit. Once you're done, you're going to cut out along the edge, leaving a small, like 1/4 inch border, as you see here. This allows it to kind of curl around when it's on your back. And then we're going to put in this back brace, like this curve, and that's kind of where your lower back goes. It kind of mimics your sway. Put the top of the brace right there along the edge of a table. That gets you your first bend. And then I just use my leg to create that nice swoop at the bottom. You can use tools if you feel you need to, but I bend it by hand fairly easily. So now that we have everything sewed, we're going to go ahead and put these on. So we have those slits at the top. That's where the padded straps go. And the way this works is, obviously this is where you will be. And so we want the straps to go this way with the pad like facing your body. So we're going to slip the flattened nylon through the slit that we made. Like so. And then you have your loop. You're going to go ahead and fish this through the loop. Like so. And now it's attached. And after a sweaty day at the convention, you can take them off and wash them. Huzzah! So you can also switch out the colors if you have a different costume that you would like to wear the wings with and you need different strap colors. This is a pretty easy way to just switch out the straps so that it matches whatever costume you're wearing. So. Next, we're going to put on the lower straps. These should go in this slot here. And then these will fish through like so. like that. So with the one side of the buckle removed, we can fish our belt through one of the slits towards the bottom. I like to put it at my waist. This is the more stable position to put it in. But if your costume requires you to show your stomach, you can of course put it lower and hide the belt, under your pants, or make a belt that looks cool or something that matches your costume. And then we're going to put the other side of the buckle back on, and our belt is on the back brace. Ta-da! So in your box, you're going to get all these bars. They're going to be in pairs. They're probably going to be taped together. But so we have, I kind of separate these into bars 1 through 5. And so the first set of bars is basically going to have these large holes. There's going to be 3 of them. 2 are going to be closer together than that third. Bar 2, you're going to have large holes at the top and the bottom. And then these 3 smaller holes kind of shifted to one side. Bar 3 just has a large hole at the top and the bottom, no little holes. Bar 4 is going to have a bunch of little holes with these 2 larger holes at one end, and then at the very other end, just 1 large hole. And then bar 5 is easy to find because it has this little corner hole at the tip, and it's the only one that does that. So we're going to go ahead and separate these pairs into our 2 sides. So for this next part, what we're going to do is we're going to stack these bars in a very specific order, and that's the kind of the order and placement that we're going to bolt them together in. So starting with bar 1, we're going to put this right there. Bar 2 is going to go underneath it with those 3 little holes kind of facing towards the elbow edge, as you'll see. Bar 4 goes on that outer edge of the wing, and that's bar 5, getting it out of the way, goes at the top, and then bar 3 is going to pivot from the middle of bar 1. Note that you want that little, that smaller space on bar 1 needs to be at the outer edge of the frame, not towards the back brace. So that those pivot points should be the shorter side. If you flip that bar, it's not going to open and close properly. So next we're going to take our frame back, and we're going to take our bolt. We're going to put a washer on it, and then we are going to fish that through each of these pivot holes, those larger 1/4-inch holes. You're going to put that through there, put another washer on so that it's sandwiched there, put it through the second bar, put another washer on, a washer at every step, and then we're going to put on the nylock nut. We are now going to repeat this for each of those pivot holes. Okay, so at this point, if you purchased an electronics kit, then a hole will already be drilled in bar 4 for you to place the actuators we use so that everything fits and moves correctly. However, if you are saving some money by making your own electronics, we do not add a hole for the actuator because manufacturing wise it can be slightly different, and so we don't want to drill a hole that you're not going to be able to use. But I'm going to show you how to size your actuator using our actuators, and then from that point on we'll move forward to how to mount our actuators if that's what you have. So to measure our actuators, I have everything plugged in, and everything from our kits, just like you can't plug it in wrong. The fittings only fit in specific slots, so no worries there. So what I'm going to do is close the actuator all the way and close the wings all the way. I'm going to take a marker and I'm just going to mark where with the bottom bolt. I mean, I haven't bolted it, but the bottom at the top elbow joint, once it sits there, I'm going to hold that there and then mark the spot when it's closed, and I'm going to mark same place when it's open, putting the bottom of the actuator lined up with that elbow joint bolt, and I'm going to make another mark where it's open. Now, you'll note when I make it a little bit darker that there is a gap between the closed and the open. This is fine so long as when it's closed, that mark is below the mark when it is open. This means that what will happen is we're going to go ahead and split the difference. You'll see here where we have two different marks right there and there. We're just going to split the difference because what I want to happen when it's closed, this is the lower mark, open, the upper mark, that's what's happening. And so long as that's happening, there's going to be pressure on the actuator and on the frame at the close and at the open. If it's flipped, if the when it's closed, that mark is higher than when it's open, what that means is basically you don't have enough throw in your actuator to get it to open and close all the way. You have to pick one. And you can still split the difference, but that means it's going to be harder to get through doors because they won't close all the way, or you won't get that full open. So you may need to swap for a different actuator. But anyway, once you split the difference, you can go ahead and use a 1/4-inch drill bit and drill out that hole. And then I deburr the hole so that it's nice and smooth. And then we're going to go ahead and mount the actuator. Before we put the actuator on, I need to tighten down all of my nuts and bolts. I'm using 7/16 wrenches, and you're going to hand tighten them down just enough that they don't rattle and they're not loose, but you do need them loose enough so that everything pivots smoothly. If you tighten them down too much, back it off like a 1/4 of a turn, because for one, you don't want your steel washers cutting into your aluminum frame. Eventually it's going to gum up the works and jam it up. Not to mention, you're also going to get inconsistent opens and closes. Your wings may not open and close at the same rate because, one actuator has to work harder than the other to open the wing because it's fighting against friction. We don't want that. Now that we have our hole drilled and cleaned, what we're going to do is put the actuator on. The actuator at the bottom attaches to this upper elbow joint here. And then the top part is going to go to this hole, right? What we want to make sure we do is put the motor part of the actuator pointing down into the wing. You can't, it doesn't technically change the function, but unless you want to be a bird with a tumor at the elbow, it looks a little bit better if you put it this way. So I'm going to undo this bolt. I like to, when I'm working on wings, I actually leave these off of the back brace and I leave the actuator off until I'm done putting on all the feathers. It's just easier to just manipulate by hand and do it that way. I don't have to work around the actuator to get the job done. It's just a little easier that way, but for the sake of the kit and for the sake of this video, we're going to go ahead and put it on now so you can see how it's done. You're going to take your actuator bag and one of these nice long bolts. And for the elbow joint, the washers are already present from the frame bag. And we're just going to reuse those. And we're going to go through the back of the wing. So the way it was positioned before, we had it this way. everything's stacking up on top of each other. This is the front of the wing, what people are going to see when you're facing them, right? This is the back of the wing, where everything, you know, this part should be the most forward facing on the front, and then should be on the bottom facing this way. When you're putting the actuator on, it should be at the bottom, and these should be at the top, okay? And so for this, now that we have the bolt on, we're going to do one of these 3 1/4-inch spacers on this one, and that's going to go on there. And just for the time being, so it doesn't fall out, I'm going to put the nut on. We're then going to take a second one of these and one of the 2 washers in this bag. I'm going to put it on there and fish it through here. Then what we're going to do is take 2 of these 3/4-inch spacers. One is to make up for this gap from this bar to this bar, and then the second one is to basically be the same as this. So we have the same amount of spacing, and this is not at any kind of angle while it's pressing. This reduces the stress on the actuator. So, motor facing down, in there. And then there. Now, going to tighten it. For this next part, we're going to need the backbrace X-frame bag, which is so that we can attach the frame to the backbrace. We're going to start out with one of the bolts and a washer, and we're going to fit that through the hole in the back of the backbrace. We're going to pull it through. The larger hole at the back should be big enough for you to fish that washer through. You're then going to put another washer on in between the back brace and the frame there, and then on the top, you're going to put one last washer and the nut. You're then going to do this for that top bar as well. Next, we're going to tighten everything down using a 7/16 inch socket wrench. Fished through that same hole in the back. It should be big enough to fit the socket wrench. And we're going to go ahead and tighten everything down just like we did with the frame, making sure that it is not so tight that it impedes movement, but tight enough that it won't rattle. Obviously, once you're done on one, go to the other one. You'll note that I'm tightening these down quite a bit. That's because there is extra bolt that will be peeking through about 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch. This is for you to attach your sleeve covers. If you are using a different method to cover the tops, feel free to get smaller bolts. Next, we need to manage all of this shenanigans, right? So to all of the extra wire that you have for your actuator, I use zip ties. I'm not going to actually tie it down, but note that I make it so that if it pulls out for some reason, like if it gets caught, it will pull itself through the zip tie. You need to make sure you do that just in case it gets caught, and because you don't want to rip your wires, it's better to redo the zip tie. So anyway, this is what well, if it doesn't get caught on the table, this is what it looks like opening and closing when you're all done, if it all works. So yeah, hopefully that helps explain how to put together your kit.